We're in the era of superhero and comic book movies, and podcasts. Thank God for podcasts. So give Zero's Talking Heroes a listen to. Each week, Joe and his super friends review a superhero or comic book movie, new and old. It's a fun time with some weird dudes. Weird in a good way. Find them on iTunes and the Play Store. Now on to some anime. Hello anime fans, and welcome to Ghost in the Cloud, an anime podcast. I'm John, and with me as always is my lovely co-host Bridget.
Hey!
This week we are discussing the fun but short-lived anime The Devil is a Part-Timer. Before we dive in, we are going to start today's show as we do every week with some anime news.
So news this week, the irregular at Magic High School the movie, The Girl Who Summons the Stars, debuted at number 5 in the Japanese box office during its opening weekend, earning about 163 million yen, which is about 1.47 million in American, selling approximately 107,000 tickets. The film screened in 59 theaters over the weekend.
Okay, so it debuted at number 5, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it racks up to other anime movies that get released in Japan. So if you do know, let us know, and I'd be curious to see how it racks up against the other ones. This show I'm a big fan of. I'm looking forward to when we get to actually talking about it.
Yeah, definitely.
In other news, Santeen Pharmaceuticals is teaming up with the One Piece crew to keep eyes moist and fresh this summer. That's right. One Piece will be having a commercial featuring eye drops with the main characters Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and more. I didn't know this was a thing. I think it's pretty funny, though, that there are commercials using anime characters.
Which makes sense.
I would love to see it
envious.
more in North America, for sure.
Yeah, I think our commercials need some anime. I think that's what it's missing. They're boring.
Could be.
So the Anime Expo 2017 in Los Angeles is just over a week away. So if there's anyone out there going, we'd love to hear what you're looking forward to the most. And if you're going to dress up, love to hear what your costume's going to be.
The Anime Expo is currently listing a Fully Cooley panel for July 2nd at 3 p.m. Adult Swim Tsunami Block announced in March 2016 that it will co-produce 12 new episodes of Fully Cooley.
Awesome.
And it will be a sequel to the 2000-2001 original video anime and will be split into 2 seasons. The show is slated for late 2017, early 2018.
Awesome.
Now, I don't know why I loved the show when I was younger, but this show, short-lived as it was really fun to watch. I have a few friends who remember it fondly as well, and this will be very interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, that was a classic.
So this week's anime is The Devil is a Part-Timer. Originally a Japanese light novel series written by Satoshi Wagahara with illustrations by Oniku, whose, I believe, pen name is 029. I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those who weren't here last week, a light novel is a style of Japanese novel, primarily but not exclusively, targeting high school and middle school students. Think of it as a manga with less pictures. ASCII Media Works published 18 volumes of this back in February 2011, and it has spawned 2 manga adaptations. The 13-episode anime adaptation we're discussing today was produced by White Fox and aired between April and June 2013. Unfortunately, that's all we have for this anime, and we haven't had anything since.
Yeah, there's no talk of any seasons to come up. It just ended with the 13-episode season 1, which is surprising. I really think they could have taken it further.
We should preface this with, guys, that we are going to spoil these shows quite a bit. So if you are interested in giving it a watch, we recommend that you do so before listening to our podcast, as we are likely to spoil some of the major plot points. That said, the show is short, but we just wanted to give you a heads up just in case.
So in the show, the demon lord Satan seeks to conquer the world of Enta Isla by annexing the humans and controlling the 4 continents. And with the help of his 4 demon generals,
Alciel,
Lucifer,
Malakota,
and Adramelech, and he nearly succeeds, but a hero emerges to stop him, the hero Amelia.
And they push Satan's armies back to his castle, where they have a final battle. During the battle, it looks like Satan and his forces are going to lose, so Satan opens up a portal to retreat into. And this gate that he opens takes them to modern Tokyo, Japan.
However, due to the lack of magic in our world, in modern contemporary Japan, both Satan and Alciel change into forms representing what they would look like if they're human. So in order to survive, Satan takes on a part-time job in a fast food restaurant named McRonald, or their version of McDonald's, while Alciel serves as his houseman.
So one day, Satan, who now goes by Sadao Mao, meets a girl who's actually Amelia in the form of Emi Yusa, who followed him through the gate and has been searching for him since to try and defeat him once and for all. The story then unfolds and explores the personalities of each of the characters and their moral values. More characters show up from Entei Isle, and they too face the new world dilemmas all in a comedic vein.
Isle? I said it differently.
Entei Isla, maybe?
That's what I said.
It's fine. So we're going to get into this. The show's only 13 episodes, so you get sort of 4 main characters throughout the first 4 episodes or so. And it could probably be broken down into 3 parts, even though it's so short. The first part is where you get the introduction of Satan, Amelia, Chiho, who is a human girl who works with Satan and McRonald, and Alciel, and just the way they have adapted to this human world. One of the things that they have to deal with when they come to the human world is understanding the language. So the language they have in Entei Isla, Entei Isle, it's a made-up language from what I understand.
Yeah, it's not real.
And they have to quickly learn Japanese to survive because there's no magic.
They do pick it up pretty quick, but they did so...
Well, he is Satan, the Demon King.
By using what little magic he had on reserve to get them kind of settled.
That's true. So they create identities, they open a bank account, they rent an apartment, and Satan gets a job at McRonald's, which is obviously a knockoff of McDonald's. You go through the lives as they unfold.
He could have used his magic to force people to give him a lot of money and get him all cushy, but he kind of liked that there were rules in the Earth world. So when he got situated with the apartment and with the job, he was excited that he earned it. It was his own, and he's following the rules. He seemed really excited about following the rules, which he never did before.
For Satan, it's funny how honor-bound he seems to be, and how he generally cares for not just Alciel, who is one of his generals, but some of the human people he interacts with.
And I think this is entirely because he was forced to become human when he came to Tokyo.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, if he had his powers, remained a devil, I'm sure he would have conquered the whole world.
It just would have been a slaughter.
We'd all be screwed.
It would have been about world conquest because of the Satan and Alciel, and that would have been the end of the earth as we know it. But instead, they were forced to be human, and of course, the first people they encountered was a police officer saying they must be cosplaying.
So by the end of the first episode, Sadao Mao, who is Satan, on his way home from his job, I believe.
Mm-hmm. McRonald's.
It starts to rain, and at this crosswalk is this girl. He hands off his umbrella and says, "Here, use this. I'm pretty close to where I live. There's no point in getting wet." And that girl ends up being Amelia, the hero, in disguise as Emi Yusa. Now, Emi Yusa followed Satan through the portal to stop him because, obviously, he is a terrible individual in Entei Isla. But she is a little taken aback at first and not entirely sure that Sadao Mao is Satan because of how nice and just normal he seems as far as this world goes.
Yeah. And she also has to get settled herself. She has to face the same problem that her celestial power is almost entirely gone.
Yes, and we should say Amelia the hero is part angel, part human.
Half and half.
And that's how she is able to go toe-to-toe with Satan.
Yeah.
In the very beginning of the show, before they come over to modern-day Tokyo, they have some pretty cool fight scenes between Amelia and the church that she represents, and Satan and his generals. And it's interesting because, the first 5 minutes is that.
Very serious.
And then things turn completely around. And you're kind of from the title, it's going to be a little, a weird show. but it goes from a serious sort of show to comedy. And you introduce characters like Chiho, who's a regular human girl, and how she sees Mao in their world. And she doesn't see him as necessarily a bad person.
No, she has a mega crush on him. It's funny.
Yeah, that's true. She definitely has a crush on him.
Yeah, Chiho, a 16-year-old girl, just mega crush on Satan.
That's totally normal. And it prompts the other characters to sort of look at him differently as well. Mm-hmm. What I'll say is, of the 4 main characters, although it's 13 episodes, I like to think the main characters are Satan, Amelia, Chiho, and Alciel. Alciel's my favorite because he seems to keep most of his original personality. Yeah. Like he's very devoted to Satan, and like just making sure that his king is happy.
He must serve him too. And his utmost ability.
Exactly.
And he's actually my favorite too. And you even see in the
very overdramatic. And
yeah, he punishes himself if he fails to, serve Satan. And usually it's something really simple like getting him the right groceries or running his errands, and it's so funny that, or when he was sick and he couldn't cook him dinner, he's like, I failed you. I failed my king. You can see in the intro of each episode, you see LCL, or his human name is Shia, doing some of the chores. He does the cooking. You see him like waving his king's underwear out the window. Like it's just his how serious that he takes like day-to-day chores is. I think it's a really fun. It's fun to watch. He really adds to this comedy.
So over the course of the show, you see all the characters develop in different ways. Satan becomes, I guess he becomes nice in a way, for lack of a better word. Getting used to the human world, and he finds that he thoroughly loves a lot of the things the human world has to offer.
And he defends it.
And he defends it, and later on in the show, he defends it from other characters that appear from Enta Isla. Satan has the ability to, I should say all the demons have the ability to absorb human fear, and that's how they replenish their magic. And throughout the show, you see this happen. One of the things that'll happen when this occurs is Satan will transform into his original self, and his original self is this hulking, half-human with hoofed legs.
And then
horns, and he uses his power not to control anyone,
he
but
doesn't
more
take
often
advantage
not
of
to help people or reverse time if something was damaged in a way.
Yeah, he fixed like a highway that got destroyed in a battle. He could have done anything with it. He could have created a gate to return back to his world, or he could have taken over the city. Nope, he fixes a highway. I think one character that also stayed only in maybe for the first half of the show stayed true to her personality was Emmy. Like she still saw herself as the hero, and she had to set things right. She wanted to eliminate Satan. She never trusted him. She always kept an eye on him. And then halfway through the show, she starts to relax a bit, and she seems so familiar with Mao, Satan, that everyone mistakes it as maybe a potential romance. And it's so funny, her reaction. She's always just furious, and she insists it's not like that, but like she definitely does create a friendship with Satan, whether she wants to admit it or not.
It's understandable why she hates Satan. So as a child, and they do a little backstory for this, as a child, she's taken away from her father, who's a human. Her mother is an angel, and she's taken by the church to be trained to fight against Satan. And when she's taken away, Satan attacks the village that her father lives in. Mm-hmm. Or I shouldn't say he, but his army does. One of his
generals, yeah.
And they end up
They destroy the entire
town. With the father in it. And it's understandable why she hates him. But through the eyes of Chiho and through seeing him adapt as a human, she begins to let those feelings go. The funniest aspect of this show is the money troubles and the human troubles that Satan and LCL, not so much Amelia, but occasionally, have when sort of just living in this world.
Yeah,
LCL's constantly putting Satan on a budget, and
Yeah, he's the one who manages the money and makes sure that they make ends meet. Amelia lives by herself, and, she gets a decent job at, like, a calling center. She has her own apartment. She buys her own food. She's all set. And then you see these two men. They're living in a small, disheveled apartment. They can barely make ends meet. And Emmy even she's like, aren't you Satan? How am I living better than you and I'm alone? But they still scrape by with, Ashia or LCL's, budgeting ability.
And eventually you'll get introduced to more characters from Ente Isla. Lucifer shows up, one of the generals that was thought to be defeated by Emilia. Olba, who is one of the church priests, I believe.
Yeah, he repped the church.
Him and Lucifer are working together to try and stop Satan once and for all, and they also happen to frame Amelia.
Yeah, they want to take out both of them together.
Ultimately, they fail, but it's fun to watch it sort of unfold, and you see just how powerful Sadao Mao is.
Yeah, but Lucifer, seeing him in his human form, seeing him all puny, thought that this was his moment to take over and finally rise above the king of the demons, and he gets his butt handed to him.
Yeah,
when he ends up, he becomes another housemate, and the three of them now living in this little apartment. And Lucifer goes by Uroshihara. He becomes this, like, punk-ass kid that lives off of them, just stays home on his laptop surfing the internet, and while he's very helpful with his research, he really is like a young adolescent. Just, he always defies the two older ones, and he likes to do his own thing. It's really funny.
And he's constantly spending their hard-earned money.
Yeah. He bought trackers to put on Emmy, and he was ordering pizza.
To much of LCL's dismay.
Yeah. I mean, LCL's always sick, so couldn't really do much about it.
It's funny how Satan overemphasizes everything in the show. He has a bicycle to get to and from work, which he calls Doulahan. And he treats it almost as if, like, it's his noble steed. Yeah. And he's always upset if something happens to it in some way.
It gets wrecked a couple times.
Yeah.
It gets in harm's way, but I don't know, maybe because it's his first time really bonding to things, really caring about things as a human, that he loves everything. He's always happy, he's always positive, and even his bike is just so important to him.
And throughout the show, he has plenty of opportunities to sort of take control of the situation and use his powers for evil, but his growth through the show proves that, there is two sides to every coin, and maybe not everyone is perfectly evil or perfectly good, which you see based on how the church is represented, based on how Amelia starts off and how Satan starts off, and all these other characters. There are some other fun characters throughout the show, such as Miki Shiba, who is their landlady. She seems a little strange. I think she knows a little more than she should. Yeah. She seems to understand that they're not normal. And you get some funny aspects of her involvement throughout the show. She sends them, like, care packages.
From her vacations
and photos. And one of the photos ends up being her in a swimsuit.
She's a large woman.
Yeah, she's a large, I guess, based by anime standards, unattractive. And this causes LCL, who sees it first, to sort of pass out in sheer terror. And later on, they even try to use this as a weapon. Now comes
home, and he's like, who did this to you? What happened? Are you okay? And then he realizes it was because of a picture. Yeah, they keep the picture handy to use it as a weapon whenever they were going somewhere they thought they might have a confrontation. That's when LCL's like, don't worry, I have backup, and he shows that he has the picture with him.
I like how in the show, Emmy and Sadao each get sort of like a human friend. So there's a character called Rika, and she works with Emmy at this
calling center.
And she's constantly trying to get Emmy to sort of just hang out, go out for dinner, whatever it may be, just to, unbeknownst to her, just be a regular, everyday, young adult. And she doesn't know that Emmy's sneaking out all the time to watch Satan, make sure he doesn't turn evil and do something terrible.
She's the one who's always mistaking Emmy's behavior for feelings for Mao or, like, hidden romance. And then now Satan has Shio at McRonald's, and that's like his human friend.
And as much as I love how short this show is, I don't think it does the characters justice. They introduce some characters from Ente Isla, and they're in it for like short amount of time.
Very briefly.
And I'd be very curious to see their background, because they also seem to have, powers of some sort. And then you get a lot of the church going-ons into Isla, and you find how they are corrupt in many ways, and it's interesting.
Yeah, they don't hold themselves accountable for anything, and they're always trying to cover up their mistakes, pin the blame on other people. They have assassins sent out to murder people that defy the church, and they're more corrupt. They're almost as bad as Satan himself when he was still in Antilisla.
Although
Satan was more upfront, like conquer and murder, but the church is taking over in a more devious and sneaky way. And they said it was said that they had very harsh punishments. The crime and the punishment really weren't fit. And they had one character who becomes a big part of the show, was one of their assassins, and she murdered countless people for them who did not deserve to die. And that was Susanoo Kamizuki.
And she happens to move in next door to Satan.
Yeah, to keep tabs on him. But really, they were trying to find out what happened to Olba when he went to Earth, but he ends up just getting hospitalized.
After a battle with Lucifer and Olba versus Satan and Amelia, Olba's taken out of commission for a while, and he returns towards the end. But even Susanoo...
She didn't really look for him. She got more involved in just the humanity of Satan and wondering if it was for real or if he's secretly plotting something.
Right, and even she ultimately realizes that Satan's not using his powers for evil.
Although it took her till the end to really believe it. But she was a very good character. They were all really, really well developed characters, and I think the one fault of the show is that short shows are great, sweet and to the point, but this one I feel like they should have pulled it out and like made it a little longer, because each character, like you said, I would like to know more about them.
The one thing that may be difficult in doing that, however, is the way they advance the bad guys. So in the beginning, you're torn between who the bad guy is, whether it's Satan or the church, and Satan and Amelia are sort of on equal footing for the most part as far as strength and powers and abilities. And then they start to introduce other characters, and these characters who presumably start out stronger than Satan don't ever appear to be able to defeat him. He has the ability to absorb fear, so when he absorbs fear in the human world, he ends up surpassing these guys. And I don't know how, because towards the end of the show you get introduced to I guess the final bad guy, who ends up being an archangel, I guess I should say.
It's funny that you call him the bad guy.
Well, it's because he doesn't understand that people and even Satan can change. And I call him the bad guy because he deliberately puts others in harm.
Yeah.
To...
And he was kind of a perv.
To achieve his ends.
But I think that was the hidden message of this show, was that they're really, it's not always black and white. A lot of shows, they have the villain, they have the hero, and it usually stays that way, and that's the plot of the show. But here it's like, you know what, in the real world, it's not black and white. There's really no good and evil. There's two sides to every coin, as you said, and people can change. Life is more blurred and flexible.
To my earlier point, though, they continually introduce characters who are supposed to be stronger than Satan. So, like, if the story was longer, who would be next? They go from Amelia, the hero, who is supposed to be destined to defeat him, half angel, and then they bring in an archangel to fight him, and he's still not strong enough. So you could advance the comedy aspect of the show and his continued living in the human world, but, like, who do you put up against him at that point?
I don't think that's how I'd want it to continue. Honestly, if there was another season, it would have a completely different vibe, maybe not be as much of a comedy, but I think the second season would be him going back to Ente Isla, and now understanding humanity, he wants to have peace with the people there, but that would also mean overthrowing the church that's really harming the people, and maybe trying to get the demons that still remain there to see what he has seen and follow him again, and then maybe come up with a balance. I think that would be a really cool season 2. And of course, having some of the friends from the Earth world maybe get sucked into it somehow, like bringing Earth to Ente Isla, as they have Isla in Earth right now.
That would be interesting. That would be something. Although, if the Satan goes back to Isla, how does he react then? Does he become more of who he originally was?
Maybe
or now...
That would be interesting, having him conflicted at times, but maybe... that. I mean, if they were to continue, that's what I would want to do.
So what do you guys think? Do you think the church is in the right? Do you think Satan's in the right? Although I guess you're probably supposed to root for Satan in this show.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character? Is it Alciel? Is it Chiho? Is it
Mel?
Amelia the Hero?
Is it Doulahan on the bike?
Is it Doulahan on the bike? For me, it's Alciel. He's funny,
Yeah,
and he's always late to the party or messing something up. One of his traits is he...
you missed the battle. I went back to get my cape.
Yeah, it's always funny when he's on screen.
Would you guys want to see a second season, or do you think the show is complete the way it is?
Yeah, I said after we finished watching it, I was just like, there are definitely things left open, but I'm okay with it ending here. Like, I don't need to know more. It seems like it was just another day in their life. They'll sort of come and go with these battles and these human things. But not that I wouldn't enjoy a second season.
Yeah.
I do think it is complete. What do you guys think?
So don't forget to find us and hit us up on social media. Our email is gitcanime@gmail.com. And on social media, you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. Just search for GITC Anime and use hashtag GITC Anime for any comments or questions. We'd love to hear from you guys.
So next week, we're going to be covering Ruby.
Yes.
One of Rooster Teeth's anime-style shows, and we'll get into that next week. I believe we'll have a guest with us.
Yes, we will.
First time for us, so we'll see how that goes. And I understand he's very excited, and so are we.
And also a huge Ruby fan, which is key. I love that show. So we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye.
Yep.